individually, and we know that they have the most ones. In fact, you're looking at a very high amount of unique heroes picked for both Bren and Omega. And if I'm not mistaken, this is also part of their Season 5 performance. And while we are seeing only 3 games played, kasi nga naman itong mga unang stats na nakikita ninyo sa taas ng inyong screen ay based naman dun sa performance nila last weekend. I liked that we are also looking at the unique heroes picked last season, which kind of tells us ano nga ba ang meron sa dalawang teams na to. Well, I said it before, depth of hero pool. Nevertheless, we will be talking about that later. For now, why don't we focus at the bigger stats now for Bren and Omega? And if you're looking at your screen right now, you'll notice wala masyadong difference. Why? Because there's a lot of similarities when it comes to the playstyle of both teams. Very tactical, at the same time napakataas ng skill level when you look at their performance last weekend and in the previous season. It's important to also take note na yung Bren Esports mismo, yung iba nila mga coaches, kapag nagla-live, for example, yung kanilang head coach si Coach Leathergoods, or even when you talk to Ducky, they are really scared of Omega. Siguro hindi scared yung proper term, but they know that Omega can compete against them to the highest of level. Why? Because of similarities in playstyles at somehow major kontrapelo sa isa't isa. When Omega wins against Bren Esports, it's most of the time stomp din na sobrang dominant ang Omega. That's also true with Bren Esports. Pero ang pinakamasaya talaga is when we see them in total action. Kapag nakikita natin sila na sobrang ganda ng performance parehas. Now, since we're talking about the raw stats, why don't we look at the individual plays naman? I'm sure there's a lot of good matchups that you can expect from Bren Esports. But what I like about what we are showing right now is their new players. Curteasy compared to Flapteasy. When it comes to stats, obviously, mas maganda ang performance si Flapteasy as they won very significant series in the last weekend, while Curteasy hindi ganun kataas when it comes to the KDA rate. But look at the emphasis of Curteasy. Flapteasy, more of a fighting type of off-laner or side laner that we are looking at now, or a fighter, di ba? And Curteasy, more on the farming side. And this is somewhat reminiscent of what Omega Esports tends to play. While I said kanina na parehas ang playstyle ng parehas sa teams, meron ding konting differences naman, particularly in some emphasis. And for the Bren Esports side, you have the side laners as parang nililift nila yung kanilang main carry, which is Curteasy. Samantala sa Omega Esports naman, it's more focused on getting the most out of the map. And that's why you will notice, hindi ganun kataas yung mga KDA ratio ng ating mga players coming out from Omega, but their net worth is high para maganda yung pagka-spread. While on the flip side, Bren Esports, you can see really big outliers like Curteasy having, 13 KDA compared dun sa mga 3 to 4 KDA ng kanyang mga teammates, which kind of tells us what is the shift of focus for Bren Esports and Omega now that we are heading to MPL Season 6. Now, I kind of want to take it back to our topic about unique heroes played. And this kind of tells us kung ano nga ba ang pwede natin expect sa laban na to. 40 plus unique heroes played by Bren Esports, and for Omega, you know that even with this just 33, pinakita nila tayo last season na mga malulupit na picks like Angela, side lanes. And I think they're one of the first ones that go for Freya, di ba? So these teams, they are not gonna be affected that much of the 10-ban system that we are going to be implementing now. It's going to be exciting. Ano nga ba ang mga ibaban nila ngayon additional? What is going to happen to the draft? Diba? That's going to be very exciting, but we'll see. We're now going to be heading back to the casters. Rob and Butters, what do you think?
What we really think talaga, Wolf, medyo na-hold pa ako doon. Pero yun nga, kasi iniisip ko yung sinabi niyang Angela kanina. Was actually naging trend yon nung ginamit yun ni Kenji. Now, what do you think ba, Butters, na maggagamitin kaya nila si Kenji ngayon? Or would this still, magsistay pa rin sila sa current nila na ginamit nung week number 1?
I just feel na kapag ka, ang isang lineup, pagka medyo pakiramdam mo okay lang at gumana naman for the first week, huwag mo muna biglayan ng adjustments. Kumbaga, biglain mo ang dapat mong biglain.
Totoo.
Kumbaga, pagka kailangan mo na ng panggulat, tsaka mo na baguhin kung ano man yung meron kayo. But right now, I think it's safer for you to go with that current setup. Or kung meron nasa isip yung Omega, because for the longest time, I think, I know for a fact that Omega has a set of coaches na talagang nagbabantay sa kanila in terms of sa buhay nila, sa gameplay nila, sa disiplina. Alam mo yon, kumbaga, kung na-deem ng coach na ikaw, Kenji, pakiramdam namin dapat pumasok ka muna kasi bagay ka sa playstyle ng Bren. So, there are a lot of things to consider.
Oo. Of course, shout out to Coach Dale of Omega Esports. Pero like what kanina nag-usap kami mga kaibigan dito ni Butters during Wolf was talking about his analysis. Meron kasing video that I've watched with Bren. Kanina lang, siguro you have to check it on their YouTube page. Parang tinanong kasi doon sa mga players ng Bren Esports na sino sa mga to yung mukhang kilala na yata natin kung sino yung maglalaro on the screen. Ay, by the way pala, starting itong week number 2, we will be seeing our players na to play kasi we do have cameras na on their respective boot camps. Ayun. Pero going back doon sa video nga nung Bren, tinanong kasi sa kanila, Butters, sino sa Omega Esports ang tingin yung kailangan natin? Kumbaga, hindi naman sa kinatatakutan, pero you have to take urgent action dito sa player na to. The rest of them answer was Hayes. Tapos yung dalawa, that was Lasty and Carl TC said na si Kenji daw. Oo. Pero sabi ni sabi ni Lasty, ay sayang di kasi maglalaro si Kenji.
So, what right now I'm seeing is parang si Toshi hindi maglalaro
Oo nga,
wala si Toshi dito. So, si Kenji...
Bakit parang may part sa akin kanina tinignan ko si Curtis? Parehas kasi ng buhok.
Pareho sila ng buhok. Pareho sila ng buhok. Pero si Curtis yan.
Oo, si Curtis yan. Oo. I'm really sorry. Oo. But yeah, oo nga, no? Medyo mababago yung dynamic din talaga ng pickings dito ng I mean, hopefully, medyo na-read din to ng Bren Esports. Pero this is something... first nating makikita dito sa MPL. Itong 5 players na to ng Omega Esports.
Alam mo, yung pwesto nung camera ni Bren, kung may pini-PM doon si EJ na iba, huli. Huling-huli ka talaga. Huli ka. Kumbaga kung kasi Manji nang nandito, huli ka, Bechi. Ganun yun.
Pero
alam mo, ito yung natutuwa ako dito. Kasi nakikita natin ulit yung mga players natin. Like, for the last, yung sabihin natin for the second half of MPL Season 5, we did have a webcam on them. Pero we didn't really show them in a way na parang, ganito sobrang kalapit. Kasi usually, nasa likod lang yun.
Alam mo, Butters, naisip ko nga lang in terms of dito sa camera, na-excite tuloy ako na makita yung sa bootcamp ng Aura. Kasi we all know kung sino yung pinaka talagang photogenic, di ba, sa lahat. For the whole team, as of MPL Season 5, 'di ba si Chan, si Raflisha. So ine-expect ko na ang pwesto ni Raflisha kung ganito ang camera nandito siya either kay Hit o na kay Kenji.
And looking at it, sobrang chill ng mga players natin dito. Wala silang iniisip. And si EJ dito ay talagang nakadikit kaya Coach Daki. And Coach Daki, siya ang magdo-draft dyan. And looking at it, dun sa may likod, ready na lumaban yung mga players. And yung
sumakit yung leeg ko.
Actually, sumakit din yung leeg ko. Hindi ko alam kung ba't nakaganyan yung pwesto niyan. Pero, you have to bear with it kasi nakaganon talaga.
Baka din yan, parang mayroon din strategy bakit ganito nilagay yung camera. Kumbaga elevated siya sa ganyang level. But kidding aside mga kaibigan, hopefully you could join us with the discussion dyan sa mga don't forget na share nyo na rin yung mga live streams natin on Facebook and of course with YouTube. And lagay nyo din kung sino sa tingin nyo yung mananalo in between the two teams. Kasi so far, on the first series, ito yung to be honest, kahit yung second series natin, hindi mo rin talaga manonostrahan. Well, you could have like favorites, like pwedeng ito yung manalo or that. Pero kasi, at major patch kasi to mga kaibigan, 10 hero ban. Butters, ano sa tingin mo? I mean, in terms of 10 hero ban, ano yung pinaka magiging atake kaya dito ng both of these teams?
Napag-usapan namin ni Manjin to for what do you call this? Yesterday. Kasi sineryoso namin yung rehearsals.
Which is wala po ako doon.
Wala. So, the thing is, pinag-usapan namin to. Hindi lang hero picks, hero bans and hero picks yung magbabago. There are certain things about the emblem talents natin na tinatawag.
Okay.
Na if ever man, kunyari malagay ka, if you get put in a bad spot, sabihin natin, you're a tank. And you see yung kalaban, yung side nyo kulang ng damage. So what do you go for? You go for the concussive blast.
Yes. Totoo.
Kung kailangan mo ng extra hugging power, you just go for the Brave Smite. Magiging okay ka doon. So, there are a lot of things to consider na baka dun sa certain lineup na magagawa nyo, okay yung Avarice. Baka dun sa certain lineup na ginawa nyo, okay yung Pull Yourself Together, yung Disability Strike, yung Festival of Blood. So there are a lot of things to, just get in that can actually affect
Oo.
yung buong setup ng laro. And this is one of the things na kailangan bantayan. Kasi sometimes, yung tank, lalo na sa tank department ngayon, ilan lang yung S-tier tanks ngayon. I'd say yung S-tier tanks lang natin ngayon is going to be Kufra and the Atlas. And after that, everyone is A plus, A minus.
Totoo yan. In terms of sa tank nga, I really know that in terms of fundamentals talaga, maraming mababago. Dahil kasi from the root kasi ng fundamentals, dediretso na rin siya to stream. Kumbaga, pati strategy, mababago, mga ganon. That's what we were trying to let you know, guys. But, yun nga, in terms din dun nga sa tank, like what Butter said, yung S tier natin, which is the Atlas, and of course, the Kufra, most of the time, natatanggal na siya kagad sa, sa banning phase pa lang. That's where the teams are being very creative. What do you think about, the fighter tank? Kadalasan ngayon yung mga fighter na yung ginagawa ng tank like for Bren Esports, that was Lusty's show na ginamit nila during Onyx PH match.
Yeah, yun nga isa sa mga bagay na kailangan abangan dito. Kasi for the longest time, Rob, his was literally known as the king of show dito sa Pilipinas. Season 1, Season 2, nakita natin yan sa MPL. And right now, I feel na sinabi na rin ni Hasto ng sarili niya sa isa niyang post, medyo rusty, pero try natin ayusin. And I just feel that kings actually stick. Yung pagiging king niya will actually stick. Kailangan niya lang makuha yung proper, alam mo yun, proper setup.
Oo.
And alam mo, eto yung mga tank show na yan, yung mga sabihin natin, tank show, Hilda is actually used as a tank. I feel that it's okay to actually use them just because merong concussive blast. There are
Makes
things,
sense. Oo.
diba? May concussive blast na pwede mo gamitin. I'm not saying that 100% right gumamit ng concussive blast kay Cho, because I don't really think that he actually benefits from it as much, kasi tatandaan natin na at times medyo kailangan hinahug out mo yung kalaban
Oo.
And the problem with Cho is kahit tank na Cho ka, wala ka din dun sa harapan usually. Usually, pabalik-balik ka lang.
Oo, parang yung disruptive, yung mobility talaga kasi yung bayad na bayad. I mean, even the Shunpo na pang-cancel ng mga skills talaga din yung And speaking of the Cho, of Haze, to be honest, pagka nag-pick yung team nila ng Cho, there are a lot of times na even the fans, kahit maka-Bren man yan, maka-Omega, they would like to see that show na gamitin ni Haze. Regardless, manalo, matalo, as long na si Haze ang gumamit yan, okay na sila.
And alam mo, naniniwala ako na marami pa rin naniniwala sa dating, marami pa rin fans at naniniwala sa either main squad.
Oo naman.
Ever since, probably one of the best teams na na-produce natin. But, alam mo, looking at it, we have the draft on.
Yun na. Eto na mga kaibigan, we're about to start our very first na 10 hero band setup dito sa MPL. Itong mga team, ito kasi Butters, kumbaga parang sila yung naging pangit tawagin, parang scapegoat. Na parang yung mga teams na maglalaro bukas, ito yung magiging basehan nila kung how this games will play out.
Naniniwala din ako na may sarili silang understanding sa mga bagay-bagay. And by the way, Rob, meron pala akong kwento.
Sige, gusto ko yan.
Mainit to, pre. Si Haze, in-interview siya.
Okay.
Sa isang post sa MLBPH. Parang legends post siya about Haze.
Okay.
The players that actually have been in the MPL from Season 1 to Season 6. Sabi ni Haze, ang pinaka-nirespeto yung player, si Ribo.
Oh, meron care to expound that? Bakit kung ako muna
hindi siya na-expound doon.
Hindi siya
Hindi siya
na-expound
doon.
Pero kung ako siguro, kasi syempre kasama niya doon from Season 1, sila yung nag-champion, di ba, under either main na pangalan before they go to Bren Esports. Then, siguro para sa akin, si Ribo yung pinaka-versatile na player of all time Kumbaga, multi-role, tapos kahit anong role mo siya ilagay, for sure meron siyang magagawa for the team.
Now, looking at the bans, Rob, dito, you have the Atlas, the Kufra getting banned, Bren Esports banning out the Farsa, which I believe is the best support right now.
Oh, totoo. Kasi you can use it offensively and defensively, to be honest. Even on scaling strategies, kumbaga, kahit medyo malugi kayo sa early early to mid game, there's always a part of you na, lalo na kung scaling yung ano nyo, no? Pwedeng pan-defend talaga ang isang Farsa. Pero how about the Selena Butters? What do you think about the ban for the Selena?
It's all about map control eh. Like, not having an annoying hero to the side of Omega. Kumbaga, hindi makukuha yung map control, walang objective control dito yung side ng Brent Esports. Yun lang yung gusto nila mangyari. And by the way, if Omega is banning out the Yuzhong, then that only means that they want to go for Yisun chip.
Possibly, oo. Oo, that's actually a good read, no? Pero pero alam ko kung di ako nagkakamali, daming sinabi, is that merong part na ano eh, ang YSS ngayon is been debuffed. Nerf pala, sorry. Na-nerf siya ngayon to the point na yung dash niya, nawala na yung 30% na parang yung kunat doon sa dash niya. The only thing na naiwan is hindi siya masisisi pagka nandun siya sa dashing phase. Pero yeah, we'll see. Pero ito, I really like the pick din as well dito ng Omega Esports that they have hit na as a roaming na tank eh.
Usually kasi kapag makikita mo itong mga Hilda picks if you really want to go for an early snowball. I mean, Hilda is one of those tanks na talagang alam mo, alam mo yun, innately tanky siya.
Oo.
Na hindi niya kailangan usually ng items na pampakunat. And what you actually want Hilda to go for is yung mga bagay na heptasis. Doon mo siya nakikita na maayos. If ever kasi na mag-stack yung ulti niya, then that only means that you are getting more damage output. And kung sobrang snowball nyo, there's a time na baka pagka gamitin mo yung ulti, mapalo mo yung isang kalaban, mabuka na siya agad.
Oo. Totoo yun. Totoo. Ang bilis ka rin kasi ng burst potential talaga ng hero na yan eh. Pero how about what do you think about this? The Chango pick dito. This might be a support Chango. What do you think? Or a side lane?
This is probably a side lane, Chango. It could be a support. Pero kasi titignan ko pa yung setup na gagawin nila dito. Omega, you're gonna ban out the Lancelot and this is where the 5 ban o 10 ban setup matters. Kapag nakuha na yung first 3, anim na heroes sa tayo dito. Kapag nakuha na yung first 3, dyan na yung set ng adjustments.
Exactly.
Mga Brent Esports dito, Omega thinks that they want the Lancelot. Probably for, alam mo yun, Brent Esports naman, ang tinanggal nila is si Cyclops. So that means they want to get an annoying hero. Yung talaga sobrang mobile na hero na makakatakas, makakabalik. And yeah, I really think that kailangan natin bantayan yung drafting at this point of the game. Tandaan natin na ang drafting, Rob, parang chess to eh.
Oo. Parang you have to think 2 steps forward. Parang ganon. Parang, kumbaga, it's a really a mind game mga kaibigan. Pero kung iisipin mo dito, the way Omega Esports is banning is parang tinatanggalan nila somehow ng hero dito si Carl. Kasi the Lancelot and the Hayabusa has already been removed to the point na they're willing to give like most of the time ang nilalagay sa gitna na may iwan dito sa pagkakaread ko is like the Roger, possibly. Yun yung, ano pa sa tingin mo ang mga pwedeng gamitin? Kimi, is that a possibility? Hindi na no? Masyado ng, parang squishy masyado if ever. And of course, nandito yung Link who could be able to go sa may backlanes agad dito ng Brent Esports.
Actually, ang pinagtataka ko nga dito, Rob, ba't walang kumukuha ng YSS sa kanila? Well, actually, there was a nerf.
Yes.
There was a bit of a nerf kay YSS and that could have changed yung pananaw ng mga players natin dito sa pagpili ng isang YSS. Pero, I think, for Omega, I think that the Ling is a good pick kasi kung iisipin mo dito, there's only one crowd control here on the side of Brent Esports as of now and that's going to be Lasty. So, ibig sabihin, that si Lasty dito, yung kung sa kanya man tong show, if ever, pakiramdam ko, sole responsibility niya na gamitin agad to kay Ling.
Totoo yun. Pero, Loyi is still available dito for Omega Esports. Pero, in terms of the Ling Butters, meron din siyang nerf eh. Na kung di ako nagkakamali, the nerf was pag nalaglag siya, it's either 2 seconds slow or stun unless dun sa dalawa. And the Tempest of Blade has been reduced from 30% movement to 10%. So meaning to say, pag mobile yung mga hero, like for example, ito yung, kumbaga ang bibilis, even the Chango, medyo meron din siyang buff na nagpapabilis sa kanya. It would be hard for him to do the knock-up doon sa Tempest of Blade. Aside from that, damage-wise, I think, and AOE, okay pa rin naman ng isang Ling. And of course, Omega Esports, we're about to let us know kung yung nerf ba dito sa Ling enough na. Ooh!
And they actually go for a Claw. Then I like this pick just because the attribute gain. works well with the Claude sa ngayon. Brian Esports deemed it to be one of the, sabihin natin, a playable hero in the competitive scene.
Oo.
And they just go for it. Gusto ko yung attack speed attribute gain niya, by the way. So, there is a bit of a change there. Kumbaga, dati kasi yun yung binabaan eh. Tapos ngayon, ang ginawa na naman, tinaasan na naman.
Oo.
Pero hindi na doon sa same level as the first one. Kumbaga, nilagay doon sa may gitna ng dalawa.
To the point na viable na ulit laruin ang isang Claude. And somehow, what do you think about in terms of emblem dito? Babalik kaya dito yung like Veterans Hunter na nauso noong mga nakaraang season? Or still, ito yung papasok dito, yung the Killing Spree na ang gamit na gamit talaga ngayon na Assassin emblem is Killing Spree. Pero looks like ang tanky ng kung iisipin mo, aside from Brand Esports that they have the Uranus, what do you think about these butters? If we could be doing a prediction dito, which draft are you favoring the most?
Brand Esports, in a way, they have this 1-3-1 thing going on for them. I mean, both teams naman. Pero mas mataas lang yung emphasis kasi dito talaga kay Cardsi na mabigyan siya ng gold. So, if you think about it, yung Omega dito, they have the Ling. Si Ling din kailangan din ma-funnel yan. But the thing about Ling is, kaya niya kasi kumuha ng pick-off sa sarili niya eh. For Claude kasi medyo kailangan mo pang ilatag sa kanya yung kill in the early stages of the game. So, pacing-wise, if makuha ng Omega ng mabilis dito yung lead against Brand Esports, Omega has a better chance of winning actually. But, if Brand Esports stops them from actually doing anything at sabihin natin ma-funnel na lang nila dito o ma-accelerate nila yung farm ng Claude, then that only means na medyo not medyo, pero magkakaroon talaga ng problema dito yung Omega PH.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Pero siguro ako, if I'll be doing a prediction dito, slightly I'll lean towards dito sa Brand Esports. To the point kasi, parang ang bilis ng minion ng wave clear nila. They have the Chango if in case na yun nga yung pinag-usapan nating scaling heroes dito, pwedeng makapag-defend agad. Pero yun nga mga kaibigan, this is the very first match ng ating week number 2 Brand Esports laban sa Omega.
And we're actually seeing things here happening on the map. Kung papansinin mo, there's a 3v3 happening to the middle lane. Alam ng Omega na nasa kanila yung lamang dito, pero hindi sila takot dito sa side ng Brand Esports kasi alam nila kaya din nila. And look at the HP bars dito ng Brand Esports. Medyo sila yung naging biktima dito ng ginagawang aggression ng Omega.
Grabe yung aggression nga talaga ng Omega. Look at the damage na binigay doon hit, pero ang hinahabol ngayon dito, that's gonna be Haze, habol, Coral TC, Molten Sights to slow down. It's gonna first kill, pero hindi pa sila humihinto. Hit will be taken down as well by Flap TC. What a timing na pagdating doon ng Tamus.
Holy moly, kakasimula pa lang natin dito. Kakasimula pa lang natin dito, may 2 kills na papasok dito sa Brand Esports. And wow, Omega got punished.
Punished talaga. Kasi they almost had, to be honest, few doon from the initial damage na binigay nung Hilda. Pero not knowingly, yung ikot ni Flap TC, sobrang laki. Ayan, kung makikita natin dito to our Gillette instant replay, na first blood doon si Ace at yung Molten Sights ni Flap TC no? Yun yung talagang medyo burden sa side ng Omega that time.
Alam mo, Rob, good na sana yun for the side of Omega na napuwersa nila umalis ng lane sila Rebo, napuwersa nila umalis ng lane si Flap. Nakapagbigay sila ng space. But ang hindi naging okay para sa kanila nakakuha ng 2 kill yung side dito ng Brand Esports, yung isa pa doon napunta kay Carl.
Totoo. Yun yung magiging parang mahirap. Lalo, sa ganitong sitwasyon kasi, lalo na't na unang nag-level 4, yung Tamus, talagang kayang-kaya niya ng i-zone out dito. Kung makikita mo, kinat na doon nung Tamus sa top, nakatulong na naman siya, nandito na naman sa gitna. Flap TC going in, pasok sila dito, Cotter Inter has been popped out, Temples of Blade ni Haji, ginamit na lang pantakas mga chong, and that's gonna be end of the skirmish, and 3-0, lamang na lamang dito, Butters, ang Brand Esports.
And enigmatic plays coming here from Brand Esports. You wouldn't really know kung saan sila manggagaling. It just so happens na laging meron tao dun sa mga gilid. And right now, Haji, hindi niya din alam kung saan nagagaling tong pressure na to. At gustuhin niya man tumulong, pero the only thing he can throw out right now is the Tempest of Blades. Isang knock-up lang yan. And na-realize dito ng Brand Esports na wala sila masyadong stun.
Oo, totoo. Yun eh. Kumbaga kaya silang pasok-pasukan. Yes, they do have here na mga parang single target poke, even the damage from hit. Pero ang nagiging burden talaga for the side, I guess, dito ng Omega is si Flap PC. Kumbaga, well-farm siya. Look at the damage doon if you almost have HP doon si Haji. At ang yun nga, isa pang problema, hindi na makaalis sa mid lane dito ang hyper carry ngayon ng Omega.
And as far as I know, the thing about Chang'o kasi is yung bawat placement no, ng first skill niya, kapag tumama talaga lahat sa iyo, yun, masakit na masakit yun. And now, paisa-isa kasi yun, and he got everything of those skills at Kenji dito, nasa alanganin.
Oo, nasipa siya doon at alanganin na nga dahil kailangan niya na dito umuwi doon sa may bandang gilid. Look at Flap TC going in. Pero may counter kill naman, nabawian na rin at last. Pero yung space na binibigay dito ni Flap TC for the whole Bren Esports squad, sobrang hindi matatawaran, paring Butters. They get the turtle almost for free and almost din na nakuha nila doon yung orange buff ng Omega PH.
And si Ribo dito, naparusahan siya ng onte, pero that is still a Uranus, hindi madaling i-take down yan.
Totoo. Ito pa yung mahirap dyan, no, Butters. Kumbaga, Flap TC, which is technically, dapat yun yung medyo mahihirapan in such lane na, kumbaga, parang stalemate sila dapat doon sa lane na yon. Eh, siya yung nag-flourish dito sa ating early game. Ngayon, hindi na nila ngayon mabantayan si Carl TC. And this is something na kailangan mo talagang maging cautious talaga, buong Omega.
And to add to that, Rob, hindi na din nila mabigyan ng place to farm si Haji dito in any way. Lahat ng pwede pag-farman ni Haji dito nagkakaroon siya ng problema.
Oo, yun ang problema. Dahil namatay na rin doon yung Hilda. Pero tumalon doon sa may bandang gitna, Curry TC, but the damage is not enough. Look at that Loyi, hindi mabigay yung damage dito ni Hayes with that passive, and Flap PC just murdering the back lanes of Omega Esports. Triple kill nga pa ang binigay. That's Flap PC, the new kid on the block para sa Bren Esports, doing a lot of things para sa kanilang squad.
Omega, they're really having a hard time just because of that reactive play na ginawa ng Bren Esports.
Oo.
Dapat sa Omega okay yun eh. Dapat sa Omega talaga nagkaroon ng pabor or advantage. But the thing is, the double kill made it worth it for the side of Bren Esports. And from there, nagkaroon na sila ng problema. Hindi na nila alam ngayon kung saan sila pepwesto. Map control is out of their hands.
Hindi na talaga nila makontrol ang mapa dito dahil si Curl PC, hindi niya rin nga nakita nandun sa ilalim ng damo. May sipa pang magagana pero habol dito ang Bren Esports. Di pa sila umihinto. And ito na, Butters, unti-unti nang nauubos ang mga inhibitor turrets dito ng Omega. And look at Carl TC, how free of him na makapag-farm, just taking the turtle on his own.
Alam mo, men, yung nilalaro nila ngayon, para sila nag-a-among us eh.
Oo.
Kung sino makita ng Bren Esports, diretso, impostor!
Oo.
Impostor to! Sipahin nyo! Impostor!
Oo. I-vote na agad to.
I-vote na agad to.
Hindi magaling magsinungaling.
Shoutout kay Prof B, hindi mahuli.
Yun ang hindi ko talaga mahuli. Grabe yung tropa natin na yan, si Prof D. Pero yun na nga, ito, pero kung speaking of nahuli, Kenji dito, mga kaibigan, nahuli na naman. Look at the blazing duet. The damage doon kay Loyi, almost killing the support ng Omega Esports. Man, this is already massacre talaga para sa side ng Omega. Tuloy-tuloy yung aggression. The snowball effect dito ng Bren Esports, sobrang hirap.
Hindi alam ni Ribo yon, but Ribo, he did a great job kahit papano na-delay niya yung pag-uwi. Kahit papano
kahit
ng
hindi
onte
niya
ni
alam.
Haji. Kahit hindi niya alam. He wasn't aware of it, but napigilan niya kahit onte yung pag-uwi dito ni Haji. And Haji, he's doing the right play. Naniniwala ako na yun yung mga bagay na dapat ginagawa mo sa mga ganito stage ng game. Try to get a turret kasi kahit papano, get some leverage. Hatake mo yung sarili mo pataas, get some gold.
Kumbaga, ang dito ng Omega Esports is that kailangan pag-reactin na lang natin. That damage, Butters! Paano mo pahihintuin ang ganong klase ng damage dito ng Claude? Claude is back into the meta, mga kaibigan.
And they're really strong at playing these kinds of heroes.
Yun na nga, sobrang lakas. Pero to be honest, no, yung ginagawang ultimate dito ng Chang'o, talagang sobrang anxiety ang binibigay dito sa Omega. Kumbaga, ang sakit sobra nung damage ng Chang'o. All throughout, lahat dito from the Bren Esports and well-farmed, tuloy-tuloy, blazing duet na naman, unti-unti nang napapanis or nawawalan ng mga buhay dito ang Omega Esports. this is a well-deserved win sa game number 1 if ever Bren Esports take this game.
And it's looking that way, Rob. Mukhang sila na nga talaga makakuha dito. 2 turrets down. It's not even Lord Face. 8 minutes into the game. Well, 7:57. 7:57 lang.
Oh my God, that win. I'm not sure if this can be the quickest win here on the MPL, but definitely that was one for the books, mga kaibigan. What out of words talaga ako how Bren Esports made that win on Omega Esports. But still, game number 1 pa lang to, mga tol.
It's only game number 1. Marami pang pwede mangyari. Marami pang adjustments na pwede gawin dito si Omega. But the thing about it is, 7:57, it's one of those games na parang kailangan mabawi ng Omega yung confidence nila agad ASAP. Kasi yun yung mga mahihirap na talo paminsan eh.
Oo.
Kapag hindi ka nakalaban. But there are those losses din na kapag binigay mo lahat at nagawa mo lahat, eh medyo mas nakaka-demoralize pa.
Oo.
But I think for Omega, nakita nila na may Claude na tinatago tong Bren, and I think it's safe to say, mga kaibigan, na Claude is back.
Yes, Claude is back. Yung mga epic skin nyo dyan, hindi na siya maitatago dahil magagamit nyo na naman.
May Mecha Dragon ka, di ba?
Oo, the Mecha Dragon. Yung mga, meron pa yung parang nasa beach ka eh, na skin, I forgot
naman.
kung ano yun eh. Pero yun na, grabe. That game number 1 really set the tone nitong ng week number 2 natin for day number 1. Pero of course, marami pa tayong maririnig kung ano nga ba talaga ang nangyari on that game number 1 as Wolf will let you know. I'll give you a complete analysis.
Thanks so much sa ating mga casters, and let's try and analyze this very, very quick game and dominant one coming out from Bren Esports. We did say that this will go down the wire when it comes to drafting, when it comes to showing us yung mga picks na hindi na natin nakikita sa meta and what a treat it is. I like the development of the draft. Even yung mga bans natin coming out from the teams. I like also na nakuha dito yung Claude. If you don't know, kung nabisin mo yung draft, Uranus was first picked from Bren Esports, and it kind of allowed us to have that Claude to parang gumanda yung kanyang status sa ating laban. Bakit? Kasi hindi na siya ganun ka-problemado. If you're looking at the lineup of Omega, sino ba magiging problema lang sa Claude? I honestly think only the Hilda when it comes to dealing with damage, and of course the control coming out from the Joet because of that knockup. But aside from that, there's not much that can actually contest etong Claude natin when it comes to farming and when it comes to killing in the team fights. And obviously, the napakabilis na ating laban na hindi tayo masyado pwedeng mag-focus dun sa items. One last thing lang na gusto kong sabihin is Few, after picking up this mask, we can honestly say that Few is now playing as a support, quote-unquote support for Bren Esports. Well, he did not pick up the mask as early as possible. Hindi siya yung instant na kapag kakuha ni Lusty, kinuha niya agad. I think maybe Few nakuha pa niya in 5 minutes na yung second mask ng Bren Esports, which allowed Few to be, how do I say this, very impactful in the early game team fights. Now let's look at the additional stats natin na post game, and you can notice how impactful nga yung stat line dito ni Few, kasi eventually you're gonna notice the damage output coming out from Few is actually incredibly high. You can see this, although kay Cartesi majority ng ating damage as a support, when you're dealing as this much against your opponents, you already know na impactful ka as a support, and we may see a lot of support mages all throughout our MPL Season 6. Although last week naman, madami na tayo nakitang support mages, and even last season, ngayon makikita tayo ng variety. Like, we are gonna see Chang'o for sure. Louis is there. Meron kang makikitang mga Farsa lang na naban sila. Cyclops even, di ba? Nababan na siya mismo. Farsa, I think, is top priority for the teams. And Bren Esports has showed us a little bit of change-up, showing us this Chang'o in a supporting role. Now, when we're looking at the Omega side, nahirapan din sila sa early game just because of the damage output na meron ang Bren. If you're looking at their lineup, very good sana yung kanilang early game individually, but you put them all together against the lineup of Bren Esports, doon na tayo nagkakaroon ng problema. Maybe we can see during the highlights what I want to mention about their strength in the team fights. I want to say a little bit of pause here. A lot of emphasis mula sa Bren Esports into dealing damage even in the laning stage pala. Nakita nyo, nagbubuo sila ng skills para nga naman ma-zone out yung kalaban. And look at that flicker coming out from the Uranus. So much emphasis on the early game damage. So, I always talk about early game damage as important kasi kanina din na nung inaaral namin yung playstyle ng Bren Esports, ang laki nung emphasis nila sa pagpapababa ng HP ng kalaban even when it's just the laning stage. Minsan nga, kung mapapansin nyo, bakit hindi nakakapag-invade or hindi nakakuha ng buffs ang isang team, it's majority because of the fact na yung HP nila hindi na ganun kataas as compared to the start of the match. And I think Bren Esports eventually have abused this factor. Omega, when they didn't have that much control of the first round of buffs, doon na lumakas yung strength ng Bren Esports in the early stages. No, why did I write this up? Because again, emphasis of Bren Esports in the fight that we saw between Bren Esports and Omega, walang big team fights na nangyari. Walang parang 5v5 na sobrang lupit doon sa kung saan marami na silang items going up against each other and trying to outplay each other. Because you know, the outplay mula sa Bren Esports started in the early stages. And honestly, we can see more from this from Bren Esports. If we're looking at Omega, I think yun yung kailangan nila i-fix dito laban sa Bren. Kasi tapos na yung sa drafting. Kaya na nila yun eh. Omega, as well as Bren Esports, very good when it comes to drafting. But when, if Omega really wants to win in come game number 2 and first sa game 3, kailangan nila i-fix yan. Girl TZ 4-0 and 5 are MVP of the game with this Claude. Napakaaga niya nakuha yung machete and then obviously nakuha niya yung Demon Hunter Sword at nung nakuha na niya yung Demon Hunter Sword, Esmeralda, Hilda wasn't a problem anymore. Niya nakuha yung damage output niya, napakataas na. Tapos, yung napapansin natin actually, for me personally, what I noticed between sa mga teams natin is yung mga MVP of the matches from the last weekend and in the game 1 of week number 2, laging 0 deaths or at least 1 death, di ba, on our MVPs. And you're gonna ask, except Raflesha by the way, but it kinda tells us na siguro yung pag-funnel ng mga teams natin ngayon is hindi na lang focus ngayon sa pagbigay ng items but also protecting their carries very much. And even though we can say na yung mga carries natin ay mas careful na sila for MPL Season 6 for the meta that we're playing right now, it's also because of the fact that the teammates work around the carries even more now. At least that's what I noticed, and it's pretty evident in this game. This is a Claude na alam natin na hindi na ganun kalakas when it comes to matching up against the Ling. That's our lesson from MPL Season 5. Pero bakit siya nag-work ng MPL Season 6? Why? Well, the answer is because of the teammates din. Yung play na ginagawa ng mga teammates ng isang Claude will really put Claude back in the meta. Anyways, there's a lot more to talk about and game number 2 is incoming. So why don't we bring it back to the casters? Back to you guys. Will really put Claude back in the meta. Anyways, there's a lot more to talk about and game number 2 is incoming. So why don't we bring it back to the casters?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that Claude is back into the meta dahil sa major patch na meron tayo ngayon sa MPL, which is about doon sa Claude. What do you think? Botters, and mukhang mag-give birth tayo into certain heroes no? Talaga na hindi natin usually nakikita during the 6 hero ban. Pero ngayon, 10 hero ban, make way.
Yeah, I think isa din sa mga factors yun kung bakit nakabalik si Claude. I mean, these teams or the coaches are trying to be as creative as possible. Kumbaga, hindi lang basta, alam mo yun, makapasok ng hero. Kasi kailangan din nila ng extra heroes talaga dito. Just in case na mabasa talaga sila nung kalaban nila. And as the weeks go by kasi, yun yung isa sa mga nakikita kung saan talaga malakas si hero si ganito, kung saan malakas na hero si ganyan. So, it's more on the idea of just leaving your options open. And for Bren dito, they saw the little buff na nilagay dito kay Claude. Nakita nila na mayroong potential. That was the same thing na nerf dati kay Claude that made him, sabihin natin, not playable sa competitive scene. Pero nung nakita nila inangat ng onte, they made the most out of it and they won that game perfectly.
Ramdam na ramdam. Talaga doon yung Claude Carl TC. Pero something to note then in terms of that match is Flap TC. I mean, what do you think about his gameplay during that match? I mean, aside from being, I mean, yun doon sa mismong lane niya, okay siya. Pero, what do you think about his rotation? So, ginawa niya doon. Kumbaga parang, ang nangyayari doon sa matchup nila ni Kenji, lagi niyang iniiwan si Kenji sa top lane.
The thing is, si Kenji kasi dito was the jawhead. So, you really have to think about the pushing capability ng katapat mo and nadim ni Thams or ni Flap na hindi siya ganun kabilis mag-push. At ang ginagawa usually kasi dito ni Flap, bago siya umikot, bago siya mag-rotate,
rallying around the
sinushow niya muna
Hoshi.
yung lane. Kumbaga, pinupush niya muna yung lane, papunta dun sa torre ni Kenji, to the point na, alam mo yon, para mahirapan lang si Kenji mag-push. Kasi kung gagamitin niya yung homing missiles, it would be, it wouldn't really be enough yung, yung mana niya to actually sustain the lane against Flap kapag bumalik siya. So, yun yung pinapakita lang dun ni, Flap. The mastery and knowing your matchup.
Totoo.
So, it's more on the idea na ang ganda ng setup na binibigay nila kay Flap dito, and Flap being the youngest member, probably the youngest member of the team right now. I mean, in terms of being in Brent Esports, he's actually adapting to the playstyle ng Brent Esports dito. He knows what to do, and yung intricate na mga bagay na ginagawa ng Brent Esports, nalalaman niya, and he puts it in play.
Totoo yan. Sobrang grabe nung performance talaga doon ni Flap TC, even into the rotation. Well, so much to talk about the lineup, the head-to-head nung Jawhead and as well ng Tamus. Pero, eto, ang ganda ng ban dito ng Omega. I mean, banning the show here is somehow denying a hero na ginagamit dito ng Season 6 for Lusty. And of course, the Atlas will not be there. Tingin mo ba, magkakaroon pa ba tayo ng Kufra ban dito or magpa-prioritize ng tank dito? Of course, Hit was one of the best Kufra users dito sa ating liga. What do you think, Butters?
It is a possibility for Brent Esports to, not ban it out. Kasi feeling ko at this point, kung hindi mo talaga bibigyan ng priority yung Kufra dito ng Omega sa simula pa lang and you chose the Atlas, wag mo na ibigay. Wag mo na ibigay yung wag mo na i-ban yung Kufra at the same point pa lang. So, I like the ban on Atlas. Atlas has been nerfed a bit. Yung perfect match niya, yung ejected state, kapag ka nag-close sila, it's not a 0.2 stun. Nagiging slow na siya.
Totoo.
So it's a 40% slow, and that's actually a huge nerf kasi kung iisipin mo, yung Purify setup mo, kung ayaw mo mahuli ng Fatal Links, usually napipindot yun dun pa lang sa perfect match pa lang kapag ka nagsanay para mawala lang yung stun at makatakas ka. Pero right now, hindi na ganun yung nangyayari. May slow na and you can actually get away with yung Fatal Links na.
Totoo naman. Pero still viable. Like, yun nga, binan pa rin nila dito yung Kufra, giving Omega PH for what's gonna be their first pick. That's the Yuzhong. Well, di ba napag-usapan din natin kanina that Yuzhong is S-tier din siya in terms of being on side lane. Even on mid lane, pwede rin siyang gawing funnel.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised na Brent Esports gave out the Yuzhong.
Yeah.
Na parang, parang alam mo yun, mas safe na mag-E1 ng Kufra kesa ng Yuzhong. Pero ang sabi nila, sige, bigay mo yung Yuzhong kasi makukuha natin yung Uranus at saka yung Farsa.
The Farsa, no?
It's drafting patterns. Ito yung sinasabi natin dito, Rob. This is the drafting patterns na nagagawa ng 10-ban setup. It's really new. Ang bago niya tignan, men.
Saka kung iisipin mo dito, parang willing ibigay dito nga ng Brent dito si Yuzhong just to get, I think, it's not only the Uranus pick, probably yung Farsa rin kasi, as we all know naman, nung nakita natin, even on week number 1, kahit sinong team na gumagamit ng Farsa, ang laki ng chance nilang manalo. Diba? Like what we've said kanina, Farsa is one of the best supports dito sa laro natin ng Mobile Legends.
Pushing shoving capability, kaya niya mag-push, kaya niya mag-defend, feathered airstrike, napaka-safe na skill. Don't even have to get into their faces kahit nandun ka lang sa area. May mga times kapag nasa likod ka ng torre, hindi ka na nila susugurin kasi alam nila lilipakan mo lang din sila.
Oo. Saka, ito pala, Butters. Excited ako dito sa one-eye support natin na to si Cyclops. I mean, it's been used by Haste on week number 1, the Endor match against Blacklist International, and sobrang ganda nung hindi pa natin nakikita masyado yung full na pwedeng ibigay ng isang Cyclops, pero sobrang annoying niyan sa Clash. Tapos to the point minsan na pag hindi mo naman siya pinansin, yung damage niya parang kang sinisip-sip yung HP mo nung nung second skill niya. I forgot actually the name of that was Planet's Attack. The Planet's Attack.
Alam mo, kahapon nakalaban natin yan.
Oo.
Nakalaban natin yan. Anong sinabi mo? Okay, yung buhay ng Cyclops bumalik dahil sa concentrated energy. As in, literally, binaburst down siya ng mga kasama namin. Binaburst down siya sila nila Manjin, nila Wolf. Tapos bigla nagreklamo sila bigla. Pre, yung buhay ng Cyclops bumalik.
Ayaw
Yung
mamatay.
concentrated energy, ayaw mamatay.
Oo, yun lang. Yun lang talaga. Concentrated energy. Grabe. Grabe tong hero na to. Pero, yeah, so much to say. And ang maganda pa dito, I mean, on this ultimate dito na Cyclops, he could be able to, I mean, proper timing of course pa rin naman. Kasi may mga pang-cancel kasi ng skill nitong si Carl TC, which is probably siya yung gagamit dito ng Lancelot.
Alam mo, para sa mga bagong viewers natin na nanonood dyan, na baka medyo, alam mo yung kakastart pa lang manood ng MPL for Season 6. Ito po yung tinatawag nating drafting stage.
Yes.
Where you actually ban out heroes na ayaw mo makita sa kalaban and you pick the heroes na gusto mo para sa side mo. So, this is like a chess match. Kumbaga, sa chess kasi, di ba, usually it's a game of setups. Parang i-set up mo yung sarili mo for this move. At kapag hindi nakita ng kalaban mo, you just punish them. Very, sabihin natin, you just punish them very hard. So, sabi dito ng ganun yung pinaka-thought ng drafting.
Totoo. Meron akong gustong quote na sinabi dito ng kaibigan natin, si Midnight. Sabi niya dito is, etong drafting phase, meron tong invisible war na nangyayari in between coaches. Na hindi nyo nakikita, pero yung utak nila, doon yung naglalaban in terms of, kasi most of the time yung mga players kasi, they just want to play the game. Kumbaga, as much as possible, hindi na sila nag-i-input. Probably, konting ito siguro pwede. Pero, ang pinaka talaga na gumagawa nitong draft na to, of course, it's the coaches itself. And pag yung burden na yun, inilagay mo pa sa isang player, sometimes mahirap na siya. Though it's workable kasi of course during our normal rank games nagkagawa naman natin siya. Pero this is the professional league, this is MPL. Lahat dito nagmamatter. Even the slightest stress na pwede mong ibigay sa players is as much as possible matanggal mo and put it all that sa mga coaches. Kaya sobrang ako sa mga coaches sobrang down ako talaga sa kanila.
And etong mga drafting na nakikita nyo ngayon, this is a matter of just getting, sabihin na natin, the statistics for these heroes, and Angela picked for the side of Omega.
Kenji!
This is probably a core, Angela.
Meron tayong I forgot kung sino yung nagsalita nun kanina, yung in terms of the strategy na pinangka-counter nila. I think that was Wolf na sinabi niya yung counter on the specific funnel or sa ganun is the Angela. Diba?
Kapag kami, yung nila, sabihin natin, if a team really gives emphasis on going to the top lane and taking down yung turret ng maaga just to get map control, that's the time when Angela goes to the top lane, nasanib siya with the heart guard and just clears the wave. Yun yung naging thought process ni Wolf doon, kaya niya nasabi na baka yun yung counter. It is a possibility, but tingnan natin kung paano lalakuin dito ng Omega, yung Angela. I'm just happy na ginamit niya ni Kenji kasi siya nagpasimula talaga niyan.
Totoo.
Nung season 5. Bren Esports dito, they do not have the Esmeralda even though that it wasn't really banned. Gatot is there. Tingnan natin kung paano aayusin ng Bren Esports yung problema nila dito. Angeling combination. Angeling. Tingnan natin kung magaling. Rhyming schemes, dong. Pero anyway, guys, iniisip ko dito, no? Angela with Cyclops, 2 squishy heroes. Kumbaga, most of the time, that's gonna be a 4v5 kasi the Angela will use his ultimate on the Yuzong or as well. Most of the time, feeling ko sa Yuzong siya papasok Then, the Ling target niya is gonna be the back lanes, of course. So, that leaves the Cyclops all alone. Kasi si Hit, most of the time, hindi naman siya yung tipo ng tank, or I mean, fighter siya. I mean, tank lang yung role niya. Na pwede kanyang tulungan like mang-zone di ba? So that leaves the Cyclops na vulnerable. So that's where tricky. Yung gusto ko malaman kung how haste pa naman yung gagamit, how he will be able. So most likely, mas aggressive yata ang gagawin dito ng Omega. What do you think, Butter, sa lineup na to? I feel that the safe way to do this, the safe way to approach this is have a poke composition or poke strategy. Ano ibig sabihin ng poke strategy? It's more on the idea na hindi talaga kayo lumalaban head on. parang kumukuha lang kayo ng pitas, hinahanap nyo lang kung sino yung mga misposition at yun lang yung tinitake down nyo. And that's it. Hindi pipilit ng laban nandito ng rekta. Siguro pagka dumating yung mid-game at naging okay sa kanila, baka dun pwede silang humarap. Pero Hayes dito, as we all know, this guy just has to position well. Yun lang naman yung kailangan gawin ng Cyclops eh. Huwag siya papahuli ng buhay.
Totoo, wag siya papahuli ng buhay. Pero kung iisipin mo rin dito, in terms of damage, I would definitely lean towards dito sa Omega Esports. Why? Scaling kasi, even itong support na to, though Farsa naman, nagiging damage din siya on the later stages of the game. I think, what do you think in terms of this sa dalawa na to, Butters? Etong Cyclops over Farsa, in terms of damage,
You would have to go for Farsa. Just because of the coverage na meron si Farsa. Sabihin natin, yes, mas mataas yung scaling ng damage si Cyclops. Pero that's solely because the reason na single target halos lahat ng skills niya. And pwede naman siya maging AoE. But in a way, kailangan kasi sobrang dikit-dikit na nila nun. And nasa kalaban mo na yun kung gagawin nila. Pero kasi si Farsa kasi ang ginagawa naman niya in terms of damage output, dinidivide niya sa lahat eh.
Oo. Saka yung yung single target damage dito ng Omega Esports, sobrang sakit even from the tank itself, of course, dito si Hit. Pero dito na yata yung unang magaganap. Medyo masakit. Kenji, medyo nanganganib. Hindi pa siya level 4 dito, mga tol. Pero dun sa may bandang likod, zone out lang sila ni Hit. That was Lusty on the PNK.
And yeah, you would look at it in a way na Omega dito is finding their groove kahit papano. Kurtzy actually punishing Flapsy, si Few. Alam mo, dalawang naglalaban dito sa baba eh.
Oo nga eh. To be honest, ito yung the TZ Brothers na laban eh. Sino bang mas malakas, di ba? Sila Haji C o sila Carl TC? Pick. Kung nakita ko nga sa post yun ni Manjin eh. Pick your poison.
Pick your poison. Pakiramdam ko pick your Z.
Pick your Z. Pwede naman. Oo. Pero ito na, mga tol. Well, this is a much slower game compared to game number 1 wherein nag-snowball ang Bren Esport and probably mukhang makakita na tayo talaga ng laban dito in between these two teams.
And I think it's because of the fact din na maganda yung drafting ng gitna ngayon ng side ng Omega. They didn't really put sabihin natin, like kanina, yung mga heroes sila that didn't really have any damage or stuns. Ngayon, may punish sila eh, katulad nito.
Oh, yun na yung punish na yun. Pero nakapag-flicker out pa rin naman doon si Few sa may bandang likod. Pero Lusty, hindi siya magiging maswerte. Pero mukhang nahabol pa nila yung nagte-teleport na Farsa doon sa may backlanes. Pero nandito naman si Rivo just to save the day. Kenji, nawala na yung sinaniban but still gonna be getting out on that skirmish sa may gandang gitna. And I guess Omega Esports did making a very good match dito sa game number 2.
Okay, it's all about setups. Kurtzy dito will try to get away. Dating magkampi.
Oo.
Hinambalos ni Hit yung dating yung kampi.
Totoo. Saan ka pupunta? Nandito pa naman. Buti na lang hindi siya doon namatay. Pero ang mamamatay, Flap TC, still gonna live doon sa may palakol. Grabe yung axe dito ni Hit. I mean, the damage from the hill, kanina yun din yung naging reason kung bakit sila nag-snowball yung Bren, di ba? Sa game number 1. Kasi they almost had, I think that was Few. Pero dito on game number 2, mas ramdam mo rito si Hit.
The thing is, nung game number 1 kasi is they didn't really have the best setup. I mean, yung Omega doon, they collapsed in the middle lane pa lang. As early as 2 minutes, as early as the first minute of the game, nagkaroon na agad sila ng problema. Ngayon, si Haji, I think this is a much better game for him considering na nakakuha siya ng kill.
Totoo naman. Pero ito, the Feathered Airstrike will be used. But Flap PC, medyo nabura yata siya doon ng Yuzhong. Pero nandito na yung Dragon. Saiha, tinawag na dito. So may bandang likod ako, Carl TC, medyo nanganganib. But the turtle has been stealed by Carl TC. Pero Rebo, Avatar of the Guardian, just to get out. Pero sabi dito ni GC, hindi kita patatakasin. Dong! Into the backlanes. May labang nagaganap. Haze, buburahin muna dito ni Carl TC. And that's gonna be it, mga kaibigan. That's a 1-for-1 exchange. Tingin ko, lumamang doon ang Bren Esports just by having that turtle.
This is Kurtzy saying hi.
Oo.
Sa mga dati niyang mga teammates.
Totoo.
Kamusta, Kenji? Kamusta, Haji? Kamusta, Kenji?
Oo.
Kamusta, Haze?
Kamusta na kayo, tol?
Kamusta na kayo, tol? Eto ako. Ito yung pinag-practicean ko na sobrang tagal.
Oo, grabe. Carl TC's performance dito, I mean, from game number 1, dala pa rin dito from game number 2. Something talaga to note dito. Pero the Feather Airstrike will be there just to zone out the rest of Omega Esports. Carl TC, still Grabe yung laban. Well, it's still gonna be a back and forth, mga kaibigan. 50-50 pa lang. I mean, in terms of goal, 200 lang ang difference. Pero ito, flicker out from Heat, and takas na siya dito. Now, we're already heading into the mid-game, Butters.
Alam mo, going into the mid-game, I would say that Brand Esports has a certain amount of lead in terms of the map control na pinapakita nila, objective control. Kasi hindi, tinan mo, kung yung ginagawa dito ni Lance, medyo sa may bottom, kinukuha niya lang yung mga jungle monsters dito ng side ng Omega. And Omega doesn't really have an answer to that. Kung sino yung nawalan ng turret sa baba, sila pa yung may lakas ng loob mag-invade dun sa kabila.
Oo nga eh.
It rhymes.
It really rhymes. Pero yun nga, like what Butter said kasi, on the early stages of the game kasi, the mid lane is yung pinaka-importante aside from the side lane. Oo. Pero yun nga, bakit ganon yung nangyari? Tas sila pa nga yung mas nagiging aggressive. Look at the damage. Feather Airstrike. I don't think na mamamatay dito si Curtis. Nag-aabang doon si Hit sa may bandang likod. Dito lumalamang ang ang Bren Esports, no, Butters. Yung tipong lipad-lipad lang nung Farsa, papunta siyang top lane, pagka merong laban sa gitna, doon naman ako sa gitna. Yung mobility itself ng isang Farsa and the damage na binibigay ng ulti niya.
Pero alam mo na naman dito, priority ng ulti na binibigay sa kanya, Haji nalaglag. Nalaglag sa bakuran. Anong ginagawa mo?
Nahulog pa nga doon. Pero yun na nga, yung turtle mawawala. Kasama na doon ang buhay. Doon ni Heat, may sunod pang laban. Mag-isa dito, Curtis. Doon nakasanib sa kanya dito yung Angela. I don't think nakakayanin doon. Sa may bandang likod, that's Flap TC zoning out. Napilitan siya mag-flicker out. Masyado ka na yatang malalim, Uranus. Pero the damage will not be enough. Curtis, kalaban si Carl TZ. Grabe naman tong laban na to. Dito tayo matututo talagang mag-rhyme, no?
Oo.
Puro Z kasi lahat ng mabibitaw mong salita, eh.
Alam mo, Rob, hindi ko naman masisisi.
Oo.
Yung Omega dito, kung bakit nagkakaroon talaga sila ng problema. Look at Popol dito and look at Lusty and Rebo, yung performance sila dito on how they actually go in dito sa mapa ng kalaban.
Totoo.
D-Face check, Rebo punishes a lot of the pick-offs na ginagawa ng Omega. Kaya hindi mo din masasabi na totally panalo yung Omega kapag nakakuha sila ng kills. Kasi the mere fact na nandun si Rebo para mag-clean up para sa team niya, napakalaking bagay nun.
Oo, malaki talagang I mean, yung in terms of minion wave clear talaga, laging nauunahan ng Bren Esports dito ang Omega.
Oy!
Oh!
Tinamaan ng...
Grabe.
Tinamaan ng cursed helmet.
Akalain mo yon. Pero dito, yung dragon ni Curtis, sino nga kaya? Gaya mo nagsabi na may magsisisi. Yun na nga, dito sa may bandang likod, Flap TC pa din. Medyo sino-zone out the rest of the Omega Esports, mga kaibigan. Unti-unti na naman na kinukuha ng Bren Esports ang mapa sa Omega Esports.
Dalawa sa kanila ang may cursed helmet, if I'm not mistaken. Looking at the aura sa baba nila. And mind you, meron din dito si Lusty, kung hindi ako nagkakamali. And sa totoo lang, si Popol din meron.
Oo nga, no?
So dalawa yan. So as long as nakalapit dyan, yung mga kalaban, there is a negation.
Labanan pala to ng first helmet, tol.
Tinan mo, kumuha na nga din si Heath.
Oo, nainggit, sabi niya, kala.
Uso to ah.
Uso to. Ito, this is the item of the the meta ngayon, sa 10 hero ban. Kuha nga tayong curse helmet.
And to be honest, it's a good item for both of the teams.
Yes, definitely.
There are two things that you should consider kapag kukuha ka ng curse helmet. It's more on the idea na yung kay Popol pala, yung puso pa lang, yung molten heart. Yung molten heart pa lang. So, umangat dito si Gatot. Well, Gatot is still Gatot. Kumbaga, siya core siya eh.
To be honest, Butter, just to butt in, sorry. Mahilig si Lusty sa ganyang klase ng mga build. Yung, alam mo yung kinukuha nila yung ingredient. Parang naalala ko siya dati sa Hylos. Kinukuha niya lang yung bilog na kulay blue. I forgot the name. Doon sa Clock of Destiny. Tapos kukunin niya yung molten core lang.
Yung elegant gem.
Oo, yung elegant gem. Ganon mag-item build si Lusty. Pero Kenji dito mabubura from the side of Mega Esports. Wow. Bren Esports looking very strong dito sa ating patch ng 10 hero ban, mga kaibigan.
Paano ba pinapalambot ang meat?
Pinapakuluan?
Pinapakuluan? Ano pa ginagawa? Pinapalo-palo.
Oo.
Yan yung ginagawa nila ngayon. Pinapalo-palo talaga nila dito.
Oo, grabe yung pagpalo. May kasama dong ibon sa likod. Curtis dito, bin zone out na naman dito by Bren Esports. Was that Odil?
Si Lemon nata.
Si Lemon.
Lemon.
Okay, oo. Tinitignan sino ba yung nandun. Lagi ko kasi siyang nakikita Pero to, the zone out coming from the Avatar of the Guardian just to shove away the rest of Omega Esports, mga kaibigan. Habol sila. Gitna dito, basag na. He's still will not live another day doon, mga kaibigan. 2-man down para sa side ng Omega Esports. And now, Bren Esports dito, having a complete lead sa laban na to, Butters.
Clearly, Rob, nakikita naman natin dito kahit pumikit ka pa.
Mm-hmm.
At nakikinig mo lang ngayon yung siege na ginagawa ng Bren Esports, you would know that they're in the lead. Pero the thing is, may magagawa pa ba dito yung Omega? I think this is a really gargantuan task para sa side nila. Pero still, Bren Esports dito, hindi na sila magkakamali eh. They're just really in it to win it.
Totoo yun. They're really in it to win it because dito si Heat medyo mababack out and yan, ubus na lahat ang tier 3 turrets dito ng Bren Esports. Still, they're respecting dito Omega PH on this well, they still can wait naman. Nandito pa naman yung Lord. And this makes going back dun sa drafting board na that's the reason why they are willing to give the Yuzhong. Because the Farsa, it's much worth it. Diba? Kasi kita-kita natin dito, though walang kill dito yung Farsa, nakikita mo kung ano yung gamit ng yung support nila to in terms of being a utility on the whole team. Talagang even pag zone out dun sa the rest Pero dito, looks like Haji doing a Hail Mary play para manakaw dito ang Lord para sa side ng Bren Esports. Ang tanong, magiging successful kaya dito si Haji? Wala na siya halos buhay.
Ito yung tinatawag natin, they're pretty much aware of it at this point. Haji, nahuli siya dun sa may likod, pero would it really matter? Yes, it will. Cards!
Minute to win it. Pero ito na nga, mga kaibigan, Courtesy might be going down as well sa kamay ni Carl TZ. Few getting a kill doon sa may backlane, and this might be it. A wipeout for the side of Omega Esports. And that, of course, the teleportation na signature ng Bren Esports will still be there because they already won that match. What a spectacular performance. 2-0 para sa Bren Esports.
Clearly, Rob, nakikita